Hi everyone, I hope you're all well today. Thought I'd come and talk for a while, put out another video. Some more rambling, I guess. But today I want to talk about when did you, in your life, have you ever really thought back, which I'm sure many of you have, but there might be some out there that haven't really given it much thought. When was the very first time in your life, and at what age, how young were you, when you could identify with the term transsexual, or knew that they even existed, or what they even were? Not to really know what they were, but to the first time you heard the word, or were subject to a transsexual. Were you 5 and you acknowledged it? Were you 10? Where were you in life? How old were you? And when you did, how did that, can you recall? Can you even think back that far and recall how you felt? Was it, what was the emotion? How did you feel about that whole thing, being it was brand new and you were just now enlightened to it? So the reason I mention this is I've done a lot of soul searching, especially through my therapy and my own self diagnosis of my gender identity, and again, to mention this, I was very young. I'm going to say in my early teens. I always suspected or thought that perhaps I was a homosexual. And this began the whole journey of my gender dysphoria and my whole discovery of one day realizing or accepting that I could be a transsexual. So it's interesting to think about. Today, if you're younger, I say a young adult, an adolescent, just much younger, it might be a much more prevalent. It is more prevalent today than it was 30 or 40 years ago, because I can do that because I'm so old. So that your exposure to the word or the term or the persons transgender or transsexual today might be out there much sooner for you to connect with or identify with. And how, again, did you feel about it when you first acknowledged it? If you can think back to that point in time, I find it interesting if it raised questions within yourself. If you already had concerns with your own gender identity and pretty much weren't so confused. Were you confused with your gender when you were growing up as a child? And I say this because in adolescence, of course, many of us, and for me, I was very confused. Going through puberty and starting to come into the world, if you will, recognizing the opposite gender more, and physical things going on with myself. But transsexuals in my time, when I was young, were pretty unheard of. But I later discovered not really so much. But it was like, not that we were protected from it, it just wasn't so out there. And this is one of the things today that makes the whole thing about transgender or gender identity disorder the exposure is just there much sooner, or the likelihood of that is there much sooner. Um, I just think it's interesting thought, and again with correlation because of my gender confusion. Um, Growing up as a young teen or adolescent, um, I always loved females. Always did. They were striking. I was shy. I was a lot of things in the very beginning stages of my relationships with the other gender. Um, Funny as it sounds, because I come from a family of 12 children and 6 boys and 6 girls. You would think, yeah, not really. But when you have some kind of uh, crush or attraction to that opposite sex, when that starts happening, um, then you really have a lot of soul searching and gender identity in itself within yourself to express or to identify. And this is where I think a lot of things get molded for us for the future. Um, so I just found it interesting, again, because I did a lot of self-diagnosing of my gender growing up, because I was ashamed. I carried a lot of shame, and along with the shame came the blame. And I was raised, in that time where I was raised, that homosexuals were shameful. They were terrible. You better not be queer. The whole gay thing was really kind of not removed, but wasn't talked about a lot. And if it was, it was in a condescending fashion, and you didn't want to be that because then no one liked you. They were throwing rocks, and you were an outcast. So to be a transsexual, that would even go further in those times. So anyway, again, my self-identifying who I was didn't come until later on. And then what it did, I denied myself for those reasons, that the peer pressures and the pressures that the society, the way I was at the time, put on individuals that have a dysfunction like mine. And I wasn't about to let people know it. Of course not. And I didn't know many people that did. I knew very few homosexual or gay individuals growing up as a child. There were maybe a couple as I got into high school that we started to, make comments about, or started to recognize that they were different than the rest of us boys and girls. But I always felt too inside that I was different. But I was really afraid to express anything different than being a heterosexual. I loved girls. I loved them so much. I wanted to be one. So, not a lot of people would say that I like girls so much I want to be a girl. And I wouldn't openly express that, but I did identify that personality within myself, which raised a lot of questions with my identity at a very young age. So I did a lot of experimenting, and I'm going to get into that in the next video. I'm going to have to stop this and move into the next one, because you guys know me, it takes me a long time to get certain points out, and then I start to elaborate on them. So I'll carry it into part 2 because I'm running out of minutes, okay? So I'll be right back. Bye.